Good morning to one and all. I am Parthiban, working as assistant professor in the Department of ECE, Sri Muthukumaran Institute of Technology, Mangadu, Chennai. Now I am going to talk about the subject called satellite communication, which is coming under the regulation R 2021, particularly for third year ECE students. Now I am going to deal about the unit 4, which deals about the satellite access technique, that is nothing but the multiple access system. So applications employ multiple access systems to allow more than one users simultaneously to share the resources of the transponder or a frequency channel. It is nothing but the many users can able to access the system at the same time. So there are three familiar old methods are there that we can say. It starts from the FDMA, TDMA and CDMA. FDMA is nothing but the frequency division multiple access technique, whereas TDMA is nothing but the time division multiple access, and CDMA is the code division multiple access technique. In FDMA, we are going to divide the frequency and we are going to use the frequency for sharing the resources. In the TDMA technique, we are going to divide the time domain and we are going to allot the time domain for each user separately. So we are going to share the time resource. There is a technique called that is CDMA, which involves nothing but the combination of both TDMA as well as FDMA combined is called CDMA. So there is also another latest system is there, that is called, the fourth one is called space division multiple access technique, which has been suggested in the past also. So SDMA is particularly or really we can say not a multiple access technique, but it is a technique to reuse the frequency spectrum through multiple spot beams on the satellite. So because every satellite provides some form of frequency reuse that we have already seen in the previous classes, that is because of the cross polarization that is included. So SDMA is also an inherent feature in all the applications of satellite multiple access system. In the next slide, we are going to see about the TDMA and FDMA coordination among the users. These two are the primarily very old techniques, but they cannot be uh, forgiven for the sake of users. FDMA users cannot transmit on the same frequency, whereas TDMA users can transmit on the same frequency but not at the same time. That is very important, since FDMA involves frequency sharing technique whereas TDMA involves time sharing technique. The capacities in either case can be calculated based on the total bandwidth availability and the power available within the transponder or slice of the transponder. The TDMA requires a very less bandwidth compared to FDMA. Since FDMA directly depends on the frequency, it needs more bandwidth for its operation. Also, we have to provide guard band in between the two channels to avoid the adjacent channel interference as well as co-channel interference. So FDMA needs a more bandwidth compared to TDMA, whereas a CDMA is a very different technique which combines the prominent features of both TDMA as well as FDMA, but it can transmit on the same frequency but also on the same time. That is the biggest advantage of CDMA, but it is also called as a spread spectrum technique, which is also used for more authentication purposes since it includes security features also. So CDMA is having a more advantages, but it has the peculiar disadvantages having more bandwidth. So these are the different three techniques that can be used. The CDMA technique is also called as a spread spectrum technique or is also called frequency hopping sequence technique. So spread spectrum means modulated signal can be again modulated. That technique is called spread spectrum, that will enhance the signal strength, that will reduce the noise effects, that will improve the efficiency of the system. These are the peculiar advantages of CDMA, as well as CDMA also have the advantage of authentication feature also. That may not be there in the TDMA or CDMA technique, FDMA techniques. The capacity of CDMA is not unlimited because at some point of channel it becomes overloaded because of the self-interference features. Furthermore, the power level control is critical because a CDMA carrier is elevated in power and will raise noise level also for other carriers. The selection of the particular method depends heavily on the specific communication requirement that is the need of all, the type of earth station that we are using, the type of transponder that we are using. So all the three methods are very famous and combinedly used for digital communication. These three techniques forms the basis for satellite networks. The multiple access techniques is a digital form of signal in the easier to transmit and it is less susceptible to degrading effects such as noise, distortion from amplifiers, filters and other interference. Generally in the multiple access technique we will go for digital form because of these features. Once in the digital form, the information can be compressed to reduce the bit rate and FEC is a forward error correction is usually provided to reduce the required carrier power even further. The specific details of multiple access, modulation type and coding are often pre-selected as part of the application system and the equipment that is available for a commercial off-the-shelf basis that is called COTS basis. The only significant analog application at this time is the transmission of cable TV and broadcast TV. Nowadays, all along everywhere it has been replaced by means of digital table technique as well as digital broadcasting technique. These networks undergo a slow conversion to digital in all along, which may be within next few years we can see all along only digital resource techniques. So FDMA, which is one form of multiple access technique, very old method, but it employs a divide the spectrum technique or divide the frequency bandwidth technique. So which holds the strongest hold on the single channel per carrier intermediate data rate links, that is called SCPC. So it has the strongest hold in SCPC. It is very widely used in voice telephone system as well as VSAT data networks and some video networking schemes. There are any of these networks that can be operate alongside of the other networks within the same transponders. Users only can able to acquire more bandwidth and power that is required to connectivity and throughput. The equipment operation is very simplified and there is no need for coordination that is not needed in this. However, there will be a problem called intermodulation distortion will be there in the FDMA because of the multiple carriers that we are using. Another important drawback is it consumes a higher bandwidth. That is also very important factor that we have to take into account since we are using the guard bands. So if the requirement increases, we can go for additional FDMA channels can be purchased. So the FDMA producers within the transponder must be accounted for the link budget. Otherwise, the service quality and capacity will degrade rapidly. The big advantage that is the earth station has its own frequency independent that is a need of power to operate. A bandwidth segment can be assigned to a particular network of users who subdivide the spectrum further based on the individual needs. So based on the individual needs, the frequency bandwidth can be splitted and it can be assigned for the users. Generally, this is called DAMA technique. It is called demand assigned multiple access technique. That is a general class of FDMA technique. So in general, the DAMA or DAMA can be applied to all the three multiple schemes that we have seen earlier. That is TDMA, FDMA and CDMA also. But the term is most often associated and collectively used by means of FDMA only. So thank you one and all for hearing my lecture patiently. Once again, thank you all.